And arguably, in my opinion, he's probably the most underrated analyst when it comes to the NFL and college football. And part of it is because he sees the full picture of the game of football. The one and only Emory Hunt, the czar, joins us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Emory, how you doing on this Saturday?
I'm doing fine, Josh. As always, I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. I want to start with this Pro Football Focus. I just saw this morning, and I was just talking about it earlier. So, Pro Football Focus, they ranked each team's running back position, basically. And they had the Philadelphia Eagles at 13 and the Giants at 14. And I hate this only analytics, only sabermetrics look at football, because there's no way that the Browns' 3 running backs or the Vikings' top 3 running backs or the Titans' top 3 running backs are better than what the Eagles have. And in my opinion, you've seen Saquon Barkley up front. Is anyone really going to tell me that all these other teams are that much better at the running back position, what the Giants have, and a dynamic guy like Barkley? I hate this attitude of stats-only view of football.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to say because, just thinking about the Vikings backfield, and the only guy that you can talk about really that's the true threat is Dalvin Cook. Now, you look at the Giants backfield, and you have Saquon Barkley, you have Jonathan Stewart, and since I've been at camp, you have a guy like Jalen Simmons that's been playing really good football. Right now, if I look at the Vikings, I'm not threatened by Latavius Murray or Matt Brown or anybody else like that. And for the Browns, we saw Carlos Hyde play well when he's out there, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Duke Johnson is more of a wide receiver, and Nick Chubb, we saw him get shut down against the Giants. And to be honest, I know you don't want to put so much on one preseason game, especially for any position, but there were some plays at the game where he had a chance to make somebody miss or make some moves to create yards for himself, and that's what you want premier backs to do. You saw Saquon Barkley do it on the opening play where he made 4 guys in close proximity miss. They didn't even touch him for that 39-yard run. And we saw Chubb not have that type of impact. I know different backs have different skill sets, but he was one-on-one with a cornerback and Grant Haley out there who's, a smallish corner compared to Nick Chubb, and he squared him up and put him on the ground one-on-one in space. You, as a running back, you got to make that guy miss. So I don't understand how they can view it that way, but everyone has their own opinion. But when you look at the backfield, you want to look at it in terms of threat and who would you rather face. And if you're going about looking at the depth of a backfield, that to me is more important than whatever concoction they came up with to justify their rankings.
I know in today's world where people are obsessed with stats because of fantasy football, and there's a whole generation of people who grew up with the box score in the newspaper, do you think at times that we overlook the importance of depth in football?
I absolutely believe so, because I'm of the mindset that numbers always lie. And you can kind of create stats to cater to the point that you're trying to make. I can create a stat right now that tells you Herschel Walker is the best running back in NFL history, right? And although in my personal opinion, I'm a big Herschel Walker fan and believe he should be in the Hall of Fame, but that I can create a stat to cater to that argument. And there are some stats that they provide at Pro Football Focus that has a lot of merit, but a lot of it is also catering to a point that they want to make. So I think you can't be too reliant on stats because, to be honest, it's a human game. If you rely on stats based off a game that's played, by humans and has the human element involved, which is the biggest variable, that's going to be a losing bet 10 times out of 10. That's why when I make the statement about people are up in arms about my statement about playing home or away doesn't really matter for a football team and doesn't really determine the outcome of a game. Oh, how could you say that? Blah blah blah. But all right, well, if home and away matter, then everybody in the league will be 8-8, right? So it doesn't matter, and things like that don't matter because you have the variable of the human element involved, and I think that's something that a lot of statisticians tend to ignore when they're coming up with these formulas and stats to justify things that they may say.
Talk with Emory Hunt right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. Emory, sticking with the running back position, let's talk about a guy that you've gotten a good look at so far this preseason and in training camp, Saquon Barkley. We all saw the run that he had in the preseason game the other night, the ability to stop and start, the burst that he has. In your eyes, from what you saw of him in college versus what you're seeing him now in the preseason at training camp, is he meeting your expectation, or is he potentially maybe even better than even you anticipated?
I believe he's meeting my expectations, because I do a thorough look at a guy's game while he's in college. And so you saw the elusiveness, you saw the ability to pick up yards in chunks. What we didn't see in that game, although we saw it a couple of times, his ability as a receiver off the backfield. So I'm not surprised at what I'm seeing. What was just impressive was, again, that first play was the fact that this guy, again, in close proximity, 4 defenders, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, and 2 defensive backs, didn't touch him, and that was just all instinct. And as a former running back, I just was in awe of what he was able to do on that particular play, because your mind can process it, but your body sometimes can't react, or at least my body couldn't react to things I saw quickly. But for him to be in sync with his mind, his footwork, and his agility, it's special to see. And throughout practice, throughout training camp, you saw him quickly pick up the pass pro element of his game, which is huge for a rookie being out there on the field. He knows who to block, which is 90% of the battle, and he's not afraid to initiate contact. So I think he's becoming a more well-rounded player, a guy that you can see being that rookie to star in this league. So I do think, in my opinion right now, he's probably the front runner for Rookie of the Year.
You mentioned his ability to block. How much of understanding when it comes to blocking, when it comes to knowing when to come out of the backfield on different plays, when it comes to the passing game, how much of that is understanding the playbook in your mind versus understanding in the moment what needs to be done? Like, how how much of is involved in each of those aspects?
Well, both can be true at the same time. You have to understand the playbook, because you then have to understand where your responsibilities lie. And I think that's where a lot of backs get into trouble, because, blitzes are so exotic nowadays, especially in the pro level. Everything elevates once you move up a step in level of competition. And so going from high school to college is a unique challenge, and going from college to the pros is an even bigger challenge. So knowing who to block with all of these exotic blitzes that you're going to see as a pro player, it's hard to really understand what's going on. But when you do get it, it's easy to get in a situation where you can block that guy, and you don't have to be a guard back there, but you just have to get in his way and pick a side and run him to where his momentum is taking him. That's where a lot of backs tend to struggle, is because they don't know who to block, or they're thinking out there, okay, if this guy is not coming, am I supposed to release, or do I wait for the second guy, or do I help chip on this particular player? All that thinking is going on, and the defender is in an advantage because he sees the quarterback, he sees where he's going, and you're at a standstill. You're standing flat-footed, so that's why you see backs get run over. That's why you see them whip on block. It's about thinking out there. And once they have that down pat and understand where they're supposed to go, that's when guys can do a great job in that department.
I know you've been at Giants camp, so I'd be remiss to ask you about how the offense as a whole is looking. To me, I think Eli Manning has got at least one more good year. He's only a couple of years removed from a very good season in 2015. I think with a better offensive line, with a difference maker like Barkley, and a healthy and motivated Odell Beckham, another year under Evan Ingram's belt, I think that offense could be absolutely dynamic this year. And I think Eli has at least one more very good season left in that arm.
Yeah, and that's going to be the biggest key. They really need Eli to play at their 2015 level. And you mentioned some really good reasons why he could have success. The running game is going to be there with Barkley. Quiet has kept the home run pick of this draft outside of Barkley was Will Hernandez. He stepped up and played exceptionally well throughout camp and also played well in the game. So their guard to the guard combo, I think, is excellent. Should help them have success in the running game, and also should help Eli stay upright back there in the pocket. Some potential pitfalls for this offense is on the tackles, in my opinion. Both Nate Solder and we talked about the tackle last year. His name slips me, but
Flowers.
Flowers. Flowers is another guy that's playing right tackle, and both of those guys you still have to take the wait and see approach. So the tackles is still wait and see. The third receiver position is another position where the Giants could have some questions. I know they brought in Cody Latimer from the Denver Broncos to be that guy, but he really hasn't stood out so far in camp. And there's a bunch of guys vying for the 3rd through 7th spot. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the tight end Evan Ingram become that pseudo third receiver while using Rhett Ellison as your inline guy, and maybe go with that 2 tight end set with those 2 receivers on the outside. So those are some potential pitfalls for this offense, third receiver and also the tackle. So that if they can get those squared away, then this offense can really take flight. But they'll be good. They'll be much better than what we saw last year.
Also, the defense at times struggled at times last year. I know there's a lot of unrest in that locker room, because of the head coach and because of a variety of things that, we're really out of guys' control at times. But getting Alec Ogletree in there, what kind of impact do you think he can have on that defense? And can that defense take another step forward? Because to me, I know a lot of people were down on Landon Collins, but as you said about stats, people can manipulate stats. To me, if you watch the tape of Landon Collins, he actually looked better last year as an all-around football player than he did even in 2016. So if Landon Collins can keep making those steps forward, how good can this defense be with the addition of Ogletree and with a different defensive coordinator?
I think from what I've seen so far in camp, and you saw a little bit of that in the game, their front seven, as far as defending the run, is going to be excellent. One underrated pick that they were able to grab was Lorenzo Carter out of Georgia. I think his ability as a run defender was evident while he was at Georgia, but I think he also provides some value as a pass rusher. And when you look at how they're able to have success within the front seven and stopping the run, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the offense to be one-dimensional. And that's where the Giants could also be in a potential tough spot, because I think their starters are solid. Janoris Jenkins, Eli Apple has played well throughout camp. The problem is the nickel corner and the depth behind those starters at corner. I think that's going to be a big ongoing issue for the Giants. I think they're actually deeper at safety than they are at corner. I know Darian Thompson just got injured, and he's going to be hopefully he's healthy the entire season, because it gives them that free safety look that a lot of people like. And like you mentioned, Landon Collins played well last year on film, and he's primed for another outstanding season. So, and Andrew Adams, I'd be remiss to say that this guy also played some good football last year and has been playing well in camp. So the safety spot to me is in better shape than the cornerback position because of the lack of depth. So we'll see. But their front seven is going to be solid. They're going to be able to stop the run. And B.J. Goodson, the inside linebacker, is going to have a breakout year, in my opinion.
Let's flip it over to another team that you've gotten a good look at this preseason in camps, and that is the Cleveland Browns. To me, I know on the Sports Center highlights, everyone's looking at the Mayfield, the Njoku touchdown. Look, let's be realistic. Any guy who can jump really high might be able to catch that ball. To me, the impressive play was the Callaway pass, because Mayfield put it where only his receiver could get it. He hit him right in stride, and the pass allowed Callaway to run for that touchdown. So what have your overall impressions have been from Baker Mayfield? Do you think that he's adapting well from transitioning from college to the NFL? How far along do you think he is in his progress?
Well, he should be where he is now because he's played a lot of football in college. I want to say he's, 23, 24 years old so he's played a lot of football, so that should be expected. What I was impressed with was how he was able to distribute the football to a lot of different targets. When I was out there at camp, I saw him develop a really good chemistry with Sean Higgins and also Devin Kajus, reserve receiver, tight end type that they have on the roster as well. So he was able to distribute the football to a lot of different guys. Callaway has been the more impressive story, in my opinion, because of where he's coming from. He didn't play football at all last year, and so we were grading him going off of 2016 tape, and he graded out as my number one flanker prospect in this draft because of how fluid and savvy he is. And he could also play many different spots, honestly. And when you talk about that touchdown pass that he threw, that Baker Mayfield threw to Callaway, it was a great pass. Don't get me wrong, he hit him where Callaway could catch it and run, but Callaway had to make that catch in conflict with a 6'3" corner that was laying out to bat that ball away. And not only did he make that grab, he kept running and made a subtle move to elude the safety and outrun everybody to the end zone. And also on that pass to the sideline, You talk about a guy that helped his quarterback out, came back and made sure his feet were in bounds and really extended to make that reception. So Callaway has been excellent, and I think this offense with Tyrod Taylor or Baker Mayfield could be solid. And their receiving core is strong, in my opinion. I was very impressed with how well they are defensively. They are aggressive. They practice that way, and we saw them play that way against the Giants.
In your observations of the Browns, the first episode of Hard Knocks came out this past week. We got some insights into what's going on with Hugh Jackson, Greg Williams, Baker, Tyrod, all the different players involved. People saw Jarvis Landry's, intense, speech to the rest of the receivers. How much of what we've seen on Hard Knocks is stuff that you've actually seen in the real world at the practices and with the team on the sidelines? How much of it is, TV production versus what's really going on with the Browns?
You know what? I would say it is 99% of what's going on with the Browns. The only 1% that I didn't know and I didn't see was the whole Hugh Jackson story, and that adds a whole new element to what this team could potentially be. I mean, this man lost his brother and his mother in a span of 10 days. And, to understand what that is like is very tough if you haven't experienced it personally. And so to see him try to keep strong, try to keep it together for the team and for the sake of the squad, that's admirable. And I earned a lot of respect for what he's going through and what he is trying to do with Cleveland. You feel bad for him for what happened, but you also root for him to try to have success, so that way he can, continue to build something toward improving his legacy, because right now his legacy is 1-31. So you're rooting for him now based on what you saw at Hard Knocks, but everything else was ideally what we saw out there at practice, because, again, the way they practice is the way they play, and that's the way they work, and hopefully that can carry over into the regular season and extend past, just 1 or 2 games. They have to keep up this level of intensity and play with that chip on their shoulder for the entire season.
Speaking of Jackson, just to stick with him for a moment, on the Hard Knocks episode, we saw the interaction between Jackson and Todd Haley, between Jackson, the running backs coach, and the other coaches in the room, how, he had Al Saunders there basically backing him up on his position. What was your impressions of that? Because we don't always get to see the interactions between the coaches behind the scenes. I thought that was very revealing about, sometimes it's not always, everybody getting along, everybody agreeing. There can be disagreements, and there could be some strong alpha personalities even in the coaches' room.
Yeah, you could definitely understand that. You saw that laid out perfectly with Hard Knocks, and I think the issue is, a lot of people jumped on Hugh Jackson, like, how could he not know that Greg Williams and Todd Haley both were head coaches? Yeah, that's totally fair, but there's a reason why Todd Haley has been moved on from a lot of positions, because of probably his personality. And there's a reason why a lot of players and coaches tend to look at Todd Haley with the side eye. So I think that was in play there. But Hugh was right. It's his ship, and it's his way to call it. And I kind of understand his point about keeping certain players out of practice. I mean, it's all fine and dandy to build that mental and physical toughness until Duke Johnson gets hurt in practice, and now what? How good is that? How is that going to help the team now that he's hurt and can't play? So I get it, but I also get what they were coming from a perspective of, hey, guys got to learn to fight through certain things. Now, whether it's an injury or maybe they're not feeling well, yeah, you have to fight through those things and build that toughness, because you will. I mean, once the practice started, you're not going to be 100% for the rest of the season. So everyone is going to at least start the regular season at 85%. Now, how close can you get to 100 is going to be what you're fighting for throughout the course of a full NFL season. But, the fact that some guys are a little bit more prone to injury than others, I understand Hugh's point of keeping those guys out of practice.
Emory Hunt joining us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. For all of your college football and NFL analysis, go to his Twitter page at FBall Game Plan. He covers both the college game and the NFL. Emory, if I could just get your thoughts real quick before I let you go on the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming into 2018, to me, what stood out to me in their preseason game, what stood out to me in this offseason was the defense is still there. Yeah, Vinny Curry, Bo Allen moved on, but they replaced him with Michael Bennett and Haloti Ngata, which is, to me, two upgrades. Corey Nelson is a very underrated guy in his versatility. If Sidney Jones is at least what he was at Washington, he's going to be, an upper-level cornerback in this league. It's another year for Jalen Mills to get better, another year for Derek Barnett to get better. I think the Eagles' defense could, again, be a top 10 defense. And in this league, you look around the league, all the teams that made the playoffs last year outside of one or two teams, it was because of their defenses. So to me, I look at the Eagles, people are saying, well, what about Wentz and Foles? Not to me, Emory, it's about the defense. That defense shows up as good or better than last year. This team is definitely making a playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't discount what they have on that side of the ball. I think their special teams is just as great as their defense, and that's another element that helped them get through and to the Super Bowl because they're able to, punt the football well. Jake Elliott, once he crosses the 50, he's in range, and now they get Darren Sproles back, so that should aid the return game even more so. So I believe that this defense and special team is right where they need to be, just what we saw last year. I'm more impressed with what could possibly be happening on offense. I was a big fan of Shelton Gibson coming out of West Virginia. I thought he had that it factor as far as being an explosive downfield target, and he has proven to be, playing up to par this camp. I know last camp he had some issues with understanding the route combinations of scheme and had some drops, but this year he's been balling out in training camp and in the preseason, the first game. So I'm interested to see how he fits into this offense. Always excited to see what they can do in the backfield, and if that offensive line can continue to build depth like they had last year. I know some guys are getting older, but if they build depth behind those starting five, then this team can keep on rolling for years to come. And also Dallas Goedert is going to be a star in this offense.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about Gibson and Goddard, and the thing that stood out to me about Goddard is I didn't watch him too much in college. You probably saw him a lot more than I did. That guy he had such good awareness of where he was on the field. He understood how to find the gaps in the defense. He understood how to be a part of the run game. He physically put himself in a position for the quarterback to find him for the touchdown. I like the fact that Goddard understands where to be on the field, because to me, many times for a tight end, spatial awareness is very underrated. It's one of the things that made, to me, a guy like Tony Gonzalez so great, is because he just knew where the gaps in the defense were.
Yeah, and for Goddard to aid that case that you just laid out perfectly is that he was the number one option in the passing game, so he had to continue to find ways to get open and understand what the defense was trying to do to him. At South Dakota State, it was two guys. It was him and Jake Wieneke, the wide receiver, but teams knew that they had to stop Goddard, so he had to find those creative ways to stay open and stay relevant within the passing game, and he was able to do that. So I'm not surprised to see him join the Philadelphia Eagles in the same, in such a similar role where the focus is on Zach Ertz, the focus is on maybe Nelson Aguilar or Alshon Jeffrey. So he has to find his way to get open and find ways to be relevant, and he's able to do that because he has a lot of experience in doing so coming from college.
One more for you before I let you go. I always appreciate your time here on 97.3 ESPN. Emory Hunt joining us on the World Kind of Hotline. You're the running back guy. I want to get your eyes on Corey Clement. He had a phenomenal year last year. He did exactly what Deuce Stanley told him. Deuce Stanley told him, come back to training camp, lose about 15 pounds, work on your hands. We see him go out there, lead the team in rushing touchdowns last year. He saw in the Super Bowl the receiving yards, set a running back record for receiving yards in the Super Bowl. What do you think is in store for Clement in year two?
You want to continue to see him build on that success. I know he had some issues with putting the ball on the turf at Wisconsin. As long as that is not rearing ugly head back into his game and he continues to build on what he did last year, he's going to be just fine. I'm also interested to see what can Donnell Pumphrey do within his game to get on the field. I think a lot of people miscast him as a Darren Sproles type player. That's not his game. He's actually more Corey Clement than he is Darren Sproles. So we'll see if he can get on the field, stay active, and stay relevant, because he was more of a power runner in college, and I hope that he can get back to that, because that just adds to the depth that they have in the backfield, a really strong backfield out there in Philadelphia.
Really quick, can Josh Adams steal a roster spot here?
It's going to be tough because you got to find out where they're going to be balanced at on elsewhere on the roster. They may keep more linemen than they do running back, or maybe keep more tight ends or receivers. So I think because of that, he's going to be the odd man out, but I do think he can find a spot on the practice squad.
Emory Hunt, follow him on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. Great insight into the NFL and the college game. Also check him out on his YouTube channel. Also great insights there. Emory, always appreciate the time here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. We'll be catching up with you soon.
Appreciate that, man. Anytime.